Hey everybody, welcome to our inaugural episode of Around the Community by Card Talk, a podcast where we spend a little bit of time traveling around the community and telling you what has been released in the past month. And I'm your host, Dave Walsh.
And I'm Grant Thompson, just along for the ride.
And so in this kind of new format podcast, I had the great idea that I wanted to bring Grant along for the ride and travel kind of around the community itself, because there's so many resources out there now, and sometimes we can kind of get stuck in our own little world. Especially me, sometimes I just really get wrapped up in what we're doing at Card Talk that I forget that there's so much good content out there. So I wanted to spend some time, talking about Card Talk a little bit, but also visiting, what Cardboard of the Rings did and what the Gray Company did and some of the blogs that are out there. And we have the Lure coming up, and maybe talking a little bit about the Lure, and talking about some of the playthroughs that are on YouTube. So that's what this episode is. And we're not getting rid of Card Talk. Just know the standard Card Talk episode that we put out once a week, or maybe in February we're going to be putting out almost once a day, is still going to exist. But Grant and I are going to try once a month to put together this Around the Community thing, and as kind of a service to everybody in the community, because there's just so much stuff out there. So if you can have one podcast that kind of summarizes a lot of what's out there, and then you can visit things on your own, that'd be great.
And bear in mind, what we summarize isn't the extent of what is out there. We only have a limited amount of time that we pick some of the ones that catch our eye. We don't necessarily mention them all because there's just not enough hours in the day.
Right. So, this is like a meta podcast, right? So it's like a podcast about the community. It's not a podcast about the game.
Exactly. But I would like to ask for people to please pick a new name, because I am not sure what I think about this Around the Community by Card Talk. So please, if you have any ideas that are appropriate, please leave them in the comment section below, or email us at cardtalk2018@gmail.com.
Right. Or message us on Facebook or something. If we love your entry, maybe that'll be the new name of our podcast here.
Yeah, me and David can never agree on anything.
Right. Grant and I never agree on anything.
Except for Sam and Sneak Attack.
Right, Sam and Sneak Attack. Right. So, Grant, let me ask you this. What have you been doing lately outside of Card Talk in terms of the game or Lord of the Rings?
Well, I have been rereading the books.
Wow. That's funny because I'm rereading the books as well. So
I went a little bit further back. I was reading the Silmarillion in the Children's of Hurun.
Okay. That's like first age stuff.
Yes, it is. So I was reading that, and then I've been building a few decks to test out. Obviously, with our Slippery Sylvan month of February coming up,
right?
We've been testing out a few different deck types.
Yeah, you and I have gotten a chance to play a couple of times on Octagon, OCTGN. So that's been some fun. And
I've found that it's leading us to look at decks in a way that I haven't normally constructed. So I've been playing around with a few ideas. And other than that, between work and family and the normal everyday of Card Talk when we get on or when we have a guest on, I don't really get much time to just sit and do anything else.
I know.
But I enjoy I've read a few of the blogs, obviously, for this, and obviously David, between family, work, and this, is listened to a few of the podcasts, and
hence the tie today, everybody. Just so you know, I'm at work doing this podcast for everybody.
Like the big whiteboard behind them, isn't it?
Right, yeah, right. And the thing over here that says Mr. Walsh, and right, the periodic table of the elements, all this stuff. It's good stuff, anyways.
But, everything that we do in the community and everything the community puts out, I'm very happy, and I appreciate everyone that's put out so much, because the information they give is superb.
Yeah.
I don't know what David's thoughts are.
Well, I was going to say that this is I kind of think that the community is in a place now to have a podcast like this. It doesn't have to be us, but that actually does this sort of thing, kind of travels around the community just to see what's out there, because a lot of people don't know what's out there. It's easy to kind of land on Cardboard of the Rings, which is a phenomenal podcast, Grey Company, which is also a phenomenal podcast, but there's other, like, a lot of things that people do, and I think it's important to have those resources available. So that's what the idea is here. And I read those things often, and we don't hit every single one. The plan is not to hit every single one every single month. The plan is to just go around to the things that Grant and I read and try to bring that to you guys as our
try to highlight some of the more what we've found interesting.
Either the interesting content or sometimes some of the new content. Yeah, that's as people are doing this stuff. We do have a show announcement. Grant and I just started a Patreon, and the other purpose of this show is to kind of have a Patreon episode. Grant and I usually record our episodes well in advance, and so to have people get a shout out on Patreon for supporting our show, it seems like it would be, somebody would pledge 1 month and they wouldn't get their shout out or their just desserts in a timely fashion. So this is also our Patreon shout out month. And so we would like to thank our first two Patreons, Joe and Dominic. This show is brought to you by them. And if you're interested in supporting Card Talk and all that we do, please visit us at patreon.com/cardtalk2018, and you can donate a penny, 2 pennies, 5 pennies, $1, $2, $5, $100, whatever you want, whatever you think the show is worth to you. So we would appreciate it, and that's going to help support our hosting costs and our contests, because that will bring us to our next topic, is that we also want to use this show for contests. One of the things that Grant and I really enjoy about Cardboard of the Rings, and at least me for Grey Company, is that there's a contest between the people who listen and us, the hosts. But again, it's because we record our episodes so far in advance, a lot of times we don't have a chance to run contests. So we're going to run a contest for the whole month of February. Okay, and the last day will be, let's see, we're going to record this at the end of February. So the last day, the one thing I didn't look up, the end of February. So we'll have
a Thursday, the 28th.
So the last day is February 25th is the cutoff. But anybody who is a new Patreon will be entered into a drawing to win, as long as it's released, the brand new Mount Gundabad AP. Okay, so we will, for anybody who is, who wants to give us a Patreon, regardless of the level, 5 cents, $1, $5, because it's new and we want people to support us, we are going to give away a Mount Gundabad AP. And I think the expected street date for that, for me, is February 7th. So I'll be able to get one and give it away to you guys, and I will look forward to that. So again, it's patreon.com/cardtalk2018. So thank you for your support.
Yeah. And we hope to see you all in this contest.
Yeah. Special thanks for Joe and Dominic for supporting us without really knowing what the heck is going on. So
Yeah.
they were like, "Oh, I like Card Talk enough without this show in order to give a couple of bucks."
Joseph, we will get you on as soon as possible.
Right. Yes. Right. So I guess we should start kind of a little egocentrically and start about what we've done in the past month in our own show. Some of the things we had a bunch of guest episodes. So we had Ian Martin from the Grey Company and Tales from the Cards on. He talked about what did he talk about? Oh, the Palantir. Yeah, the Palantir. So just to let you know, that was released middle of January, and I think Grant and I recorded that in November. So that's why the show that we're doing now came about. We also did Mr. Underhill, who is a great talk. He lives in Australia. That was an awesome conversation about Lore Aragorn. And I still can't put into words exactly why I don't love Lore Aragorn, but I'm still looking for it. I'm still trying to figure out what...
Well, when you do figure it out, right. David, please let me in, Ryan. No.
Right, I'll post it. I'll figure it out.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and then we also had Dominic from the Lure of the Lure
of Moria.
Yeah.
The Lure of Middle Earth, right? Yeah,
that's the one.
He's one of those. Him and his buddy are organizing a big convention in Germany, and so that was really good. We spent more time talking about the lure than we did about the card, but I think that was on purpose. I mean, Dominic is putting a lot of hard work into organizing the lure, and that was a lot of fun.
And it shows. Look at how the community has grown over the past few years between Gen Con, Con of the Rings, the Lure of Middle Earth, and all the other, like the fellowship events that's been going on.
Yeah.
And it's a great way for people to get together. Obviously, I'm in the UK. I don't get fellowship events. Well, I do, but I'm still waiting on my Woodland Realm fellowship event.
Right.
So,
and as we find out more about these events, we'll definitely pass them along to you. We may not be the foremost news authority for Lord of the Rings, but as we travel around the community each month, these things are just important to us as they are to everybody else. So we want to make sure that we have that. And I think Dominic is going to come back on the show after the lure and do a recap show.
Yeah, well, that's what we've asked for, and he seemed really excited to do that.
Yeah, and I was nervous because it was going to be the first Card Talk show without a card, like a true Card Talk show. We were going to do another, but he released that card that everybody who comes to the lure to play the LCG is going to get. So we'll talk about that card a little bit, but mainly about, and so we'll put a link to the Lure of Middle Earth in the description of the podcast.
Right, and what have we released this month, David?
This month?
Yeah, in terms of normal Card Talk episodes.
Yeah, because we've had so many guests on. Just to let you know, like typically when we run guest hosts, I try not to burden the releases with other stuff. But when we release kind of normal cards, we released Tactics Aragorn, and then Sauron's Reach. And so we're going randomly through all the player cards, kind of as Grant and I see fit. But when we do it Encounter Card Talk and talk about the encounter decks, we're taking those in order. So we've managed to get through Sauron's Reach. We've recorded almost all of the, if not all of the core set packs, but we just have to find time to release them.
Yeah, we've recorded them all. We've got the Shadows of Mirkwood to do, like the Mirkwood cycle, and
we're just going to go in order through the whole game.
Yeah,
right
the way down to the Wilds of Rovanion.
Right, Mount Gundabad.
Yeah,
and I mean, it doesn't seem huge, but I think that you and I should be proud that we reached 1,000 monthly downloads on our audio version of our podcast, along with the 500 or so views that we get combined between our YouTube video releases and our on Facebook that we get kind of per episode. And I'm not sure how they look at that. Maybe somebody's just clicking on it and looking on those things, but I think that we got something going here. So
yeah, and I'd like to thank everybody who does download our audio podcast or watch us on YouTube. It makes a it makes it seem worthwhile.
Yeah.
I mean, putting this content out for you is a great feeling, and knowing that you are watching it and appreciate it makes me feel like we can carry on doing this.
Yeah. Absolutely. This is why we do it. We don't do it to get 1,000 downloads. We do it because we enjoy doing it and it helps the community. But to get 1,000 downloads, I think really it shows that it's helping the community, or the community enjoys it.
Exactly. So what we got coming up for the month of February then, David?
The bane of my existence. Sometime last year, I decided at the end of the year that I said, Grant, let's put out an episode a day in February, and let's do it centered around a deck. And so we have Sylvan February coming up. And I made a mistake when I was uploading a playthrough the other day, and it ended up that the playthrough was supposed to be released in mid-February, but I forgot to set that date, so it came out on Monday or Tuesday or something, and so people can get a sense of what Sylvan February is. So we're going to release 17 card episodes, and we're going to release at least 6 playthroughs, all centered around the Slippery Sylvans, and it's going to be wild. It's just going to be...
and those playthroughs are not only solo, but there are some...
There are two play. You and I got together and played the Slippery Sylvan, and they're not all wins. They're close to wins, but they're not all wins. We also, I forget if it was right before we recorded all the Sylvan stuff, but Durin's father, A Vision of the Palantir, came on our show, and he's gonna talk about Idrian, who has seen a little bit of resurgence in the current meta of the game. And Dan Pogue, who you don't probably know by Dan Pogue, but Grant, who is Dan Pogue?
He is the meaty bear himself, Beorn.
Beorn. And so, of Hall of Beorn. And so that's great. And we got a chance to talk to him. And
that was it was good.
Great conversation. That guy, he's so knowledgeable and he's such a nice guy. And he, like John Meek from Cardboard of the Rings, has a great voice for podcasting. And so it's just, I could listen to him talk the whole time. And that's what I did for the most part. That podcast was just me listening to him. So those are coming out in March. So if you want to mark your calendar, no, those because we're doing Sylvan. The Sylvan's February.
It's just what you've got. It's just the way it's written down. What's coming up,
right?
And obviously we're having Dominic back for the lure news from the lure.
Yeah, and so I think there's still space for the lure. So if you're interested. Beorn Dan Pogue was telling us that he's going to the lure, and also Caleb is going to the lure too. So that's neat. Caleb is getting out and playing in fan events like that. That's cool because he's a fan of the game too. So and we're hoping to get him back on the show sometime. So Caleb, if you're listening to this, let us know. We'll have you back on.
And it's just amazing how much Caleb is involved in the community itself. Obviously, he's at Gen Con. Every year he's at Gen Con?
I think so. I mean, it's really close to where he's working, so.
And then, obviously, he's going to the lure. He's always happy to answer questions about the game. It shows his love for the game. And it shows how he's designed the quests really well. Mm-hmm. And he's like, "Oh, you got a problem with this, right? Let's have yes, that's the ruling. That's how it goes."
Right, and he's not afraid to reverse a ruling that may be not working, and that's always good. That he's not so high and mighty that he is like, "Oops, I made a mistake," and that's always great to see from the designer of the game. So he's really high quality, and I mean, we're not going to talk about Card Talk for the whole show, but I did want to say that that Caleb made the latest episode of The Grey Company, which is a podcast where 4 guys, Derek, Matthew, Ian, and Dan, they talk about the game and do all sorts of stuff, and they take it. It's like Like, there's a lot of information packed into the episode. A Great Company episode. I don't know if you've ever listened to the Great Company, but
I have, but I've found that it's not so focused on the game. It's focused on Lord of the Rings or Middle Earth in general.
Yeah, they've been doing a series. They're up to 24 parts now, where they have been talking about they've been reading the book. They've been doing a book club. And so they just got into the chapters 5 and 6 of the last book. I think it's called "The Steward and the King." Is in many partings were the 2 chapters they talked about. And Caleb was on that show too. It was a great conversation, and I won't do it justice by summarizing what they talked about. I think one of them wasn't there. I think Matthew was out doing whatever. So. But they do such a great job. So you can find them on Facebook, and you can find them on Twitter and things like that. The Great Company, I think, is their information. All the links and stuff we'll post so people can get a hold of these. And so they're one of the, I think I would call them one of the big 2 of the podcasters about the game. They just do a lot of good stuff. They even talk about the movies and how the movies do justice to the lore, or do not do justice to the lore. It's just a really good podcast. And to hear Caleb talk about this in this past episode, it was wild. It was good.
Okay, and what's Cardboard of the Rings been up to then, David?
Cardboard of the Rings. I love these guys. These guys never take themselves too seriously. And so last episode, they had an award show. And so I guess yearly, this was their 2nd annual award show. They call them the Emerys. And I'm not going to go through all the categories and stuff. If you want, you can go to cardboardoftheRings.com and listen to the show. They're up to episode like 143 or something like that. It's crazy. But I will spoil one thing for you, for those people who haven't listened to the show. They had a category. They have categories like Best Released Ally for the year. And it's always the cards that have been released over the year. And so they'll go through all the adventure packs and things like that. But and so they'll have like Best Ally. And you pick, the community votes on who they think the best ally was. They had, this is great. They had Best Designer. And so the Designer of the Year came up. And there was 2 nominations. One was Caleb, of course. And then the second was a user's daughter who developed a game for her dad over Christmas and gave it to him as a Christmas present. And that user has, at least on Discord, has a name Jag2K2. I'm not sure who that person is, or if they're on Facebook or whatever. Actually, I know that they're on Facebook because over Christmas, a picture hit the Facebook group about the scenario, but the daughter won. The daughter beat out Caleb, and it was classic. So I reached out to Jag2K2 on the Discord server, and I'm in negotiations with the daughter to see if she'll come on the show. We'll see. But the whole show was really great, and Chad and Chris and John and Aaron and all the guys that make that show happen, they do a great job. And they've been around since the game began, so they really have a lot of perspective on everything that's going on. They did talk about the new LOTR game that's being released by Fantasy Flight. There's a new, I guess, hybrid game, kind of a tabletop board game that looks pretty cool, but I don't know. That's not LCG related. So, but if you want to know more about it, feel free to tune in to what they have to say. CardboardoftheRings.com is their website. What about the communities? So we have several communities, right, Grant? We have Facebook and we have Discord and we have a Reddit community. What's going on around there?
Well, in the communities on Facebook, obviously that's run by Joseph Forster, our second Patreon. In our first ever guest episode was Joseph.
Yeah.
Got 100 new members in January, over 100 new members since January.
Right, which is, I think that speaks to the popularity of the game. I was thinking like a lot of people may have gotten it for Christmas, and then all of a sudden there was this whole thing. But the group itself had about 2,200 members before Christmas. And then now it's up to like 2,350 or something. So it's really, the group has exploded. Like, that's a ton of new members.
Yeah. And then people have been having a little bit of fun on the forum, posting pictures of cards. Chad did one for ask people to post a card as a meme, and you had to guess what it was.
That was Chad Garlinghouse of Cardboard of the Rings. He posted some memes. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. And then you also posted one for Caption This.
Right.
Which that was also quite funny to watch what people were
right.
putting. And then for actual physical verbal discussions, we have the Cardboard of the Board of the Rings Discord. There are also several other Discord channels dedicated to Lord of the Rings. Let's see. I've got a server up there which is the Lord of the Rings OCTGN group, which has a lot of members in, which are also probably part of the Cardboard of the Rings group. Mm-hmm. And it's just more ways to find people to have games with.
I was going to say, like, if you're new to the community, okay, I don't know if there's other communities of Facebook or other communities that are organized like Facebook, Discord, and Reddit. Like, Twitter doesn't lend itself necessarily to having communities, and Instagram doesn't necessarily, but there's people that post stuff there. But Facebook is kind of like an everyman's sort of community where, hey, just Joe Blow off the street. And I think a lot of people are on the Facebook community because Facebook is easily accessible, to everybody. So if you're new, get on the Facebook community, look up Lord of the Rings, the card game, and it'll be there. And then I think the Discord, like, the feel in the Discord is not that it's, what do I want to say? It's not that it's more serious, because people definitely have a lot more fun there, or have fun in the Discord channel. But I think because Discord is a platform designed for, like, more serious gamers, there's a lot more, like, consolidated information there. Like, when people ask a question, you get an answer pretty quickly there, and, the question's over. So it's I don't know exactly how to say it.
It can be a bit overwhelming.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different channels, and I wouldn't call it overwhelming if you're used to the way those sorts of things work. But yeah,
if you're not, it can be very overwhelming.
Right. There's a guy on the Discord channel or the Discord server that I will give a shout out name. His real name is Lawrence, but he goes by Sapidus, and he's also in the FFG Forums, and he's like the rules guru. If you ever have a question, go to the FFG Forums or go into the Discord server and tag Sapidus, and he knows every rule about everything, and he's amazing. When you go to the FFG site, there's an unofficial rules blog, and he is the moderator of that thread. I guess it's not a blog, but it's a thread, because he's great. But he's only on Facebook every once in a while. And
you wanted to give another shout out.
Oh yeah, yeah. So there's a guy who I just love. His name is his handle is Sweetness Wa Cha Cha, and I love that handle. And Sweetness Wa Cha Cha, actually, when we had our Cardboard of the Rings and Card Talk co-competition, Sweetness Wa Cha Cha won one of the boxes. So he just joined the Discord group. So go join the Discord group and say hi to Sweetness Wa Cha Cha. But Sweetness actually has his own blog, and it's called the Mouth of Sauron, and so that's really good. He takes the game from the perspective of the encounter deck, and he has episodes about that. So I enjoy what Sweetness Wa Cha Cha does, on top of also just kind of saying his name a bunch. Sweetness Wa Cha Cha. And then The third community I think that's kind of organized is Reddit. There's a huge, like, 3,000 person Reddit community, and it seems like when questions come up, people post there and things like that. It's not as organized as either the Facebook group or the Discord group, but it's definitely there, and I will say it's vibrant. And so I think that's good. But I think here's the thing, and this is probably, it would be remiss to not have one of these shows talk about it. The big news from FFG is that sometime in February, we're supposed to get a whole bunch of APs reprinted and out. But it seems like so many people on all of these channels, not the Discord server so much, but on Facebook and Reddit, people are selling off their collection. I don't know if they're frustrated or if they're just trying to sell off their collection. But even more so than selling, people are trying to set up swaps now. And so it looks like there's like adventure pack swaps that are about to happen that need to get organized somehow. But people have been posting a lot in the Facebook group and a lot in the Reddit group about hey, I have Hunt for Gollum. Can I get Across the Entmoors? And so I think that that's really neat, especially with the current dry spell that we've been going through with adventure pack releases.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I've looked at but never gotten into. It may be the case that being in the UK, it might be something I eventually have to go down that route. But here's hoping with the new releases, the new re-releases of the older stuff, I may be able to get my hands on a few bits and pieces.
Yeah, it's looking like FFG is going to release a bunch of stuff in the middle of February, and then another a bunch of stuff in the end of February or a couple weeks later. There's a tweet that got posted in the Facebook group, and I think the Discord server, I think it went all out, so people are super excited. So hopefully you'll be able to get your hands on it.
Yeah, and as for stuff on YouTube, we have Mr. Underhill, a.k.a. Ryan, and Joseph are continuing their two-player thematic campaign through the saga expansions of Lord of the Rings. They have just defeated the Road to Isengard, which is a great episode. I suggest you watch it because it's quite entertaining. Yeah,
they post that on Mr. Underhill's YouTube channel if you're looking for it. Again, we'll try to post all the links to all this stuff below.
And then we have the LOTR deck check.
Oh, before we get on, let's just double check. Let's just explain what the thematic campaign is.
Oh, right, yes. It's where Ryan and Joseph take heroes that would have been there. Like, for example, in Road to Isengard, they've chosen Gimli, Legolas, Theoden, and Treebeard, and a couple of other, and Merry, I think, is the other hero they've chosen to run with.
Yeah,
and it's basically where they take the characters from that point in the book and build a deck using them. So it's quite restrictive in what they can use. Obviously, they aren't ramping their threat every time for the change of heroes because that would make it kind of unplayable to do it thematically.
Right.
And it's quite interesting to watch how they went from the Shire right the way through. Mm-hmm. And you can actually see the decisions being made.
Yeah, and they go into some of those decisions too. And I mean, it's just, for me, this is exactly kind of what I love to see, is like decisions about why certain heroes are being used, and they're not trying to abstract it too much. If you're talking about a Shire scene or a Shire, like the first one there, the first Black Riders. Anyways, they're taking
Shadow of the Past.
Yeah, Shadow of the Past. They're taking hobbits because those were the hobbits. They're trying not to abstract too much from that, but that's what they're doing. They're taking heroes that would be heroes and allies. I think their whole deck is kind of built around what would be their.
I think they've done that up to a certain point. They have altered that. They have altered that at certain points when needed. Obviously, in Shadow of the Past, they had the Errant Rider to move resources around. But generally speaking, it's mainly focused on the heroes. I mean, yes, they've altered it so that when they're going to the mines of Moria, not through the mines, but to the mines, they've focused on having fewer allies because of the fact that they've just left Rivendell and they've only got a handful of allies with them. So they'd be like the Eregian Survivor and cards like that. So yes, they've limited themselves in that way, which is also very good to see.
Right. It's just such a unique way to play the campaign. It's something that you haven't seen before. And that's what I like, is that, you know, there's people who play the game, and then there's these guys that are taking the game and kind of moving it a little bit outside the box, and I love that. So I highly recommend. And you know, Ryan and Joseph have always been friends of the show, anyways. So that always helps. Go talk about the LOTR deck tech guy, because I wish I knew this guy. Like, this guy is amazing.
I've messaged him a couple of times. Hopefully, you'll see this and actually think, yeah, I want to come on. Chris does a lot of great videos, either live playthroughs or his OCTGN playthroughs. He's always got great decks going on. And sometimes it's a deck that's just made for fun. You know, it's not necessarily going to work, but he plays it anyway. Whether he wins or loses, it's always, you can see that he's put in the effort to do it. And I've never seen a bad episode that he's put out.
Yeah, and he's really conscientious too, because his live playthroughs, he's conscientious that, you know, those live playthroughs can sometimes appear to be a slog, you know, because of all the stuff that's
all the shuffling.
Yeah, all the shuffling and stuff, you know. And that's something that I am what do I want to say? That's something that I am conscious of, because I do all my playthroughs as live playthroughs as well. So it's he's a man after my own heart. So
yeah, and hopefully we can get him on the show.
Yeah, that'd be great. The other thing that I wanted to make sure that I shared is that there's I don't know if there's a new guy in town, or I'm not sure how long this guy has been around, but there's a new progression series going on, solo progression series, where and so for those of you who don't know, a progression series is where you play the scenarios, but you only play them with cards that were released either with that adventure pack or before. So you're progressing through the game as it was released. So it became a progression series. And this guy his YouTube channel is Rolling Intentions. And so he's a great watch too. He's up to the Red Horn Gate. He does other stuff too. But Rolling Intentions on YouTube, and he's doing some good stuff. So I recommend giving him a watch. I've actually reached out. He's in the Reddit group, and or the subreddit, I guess. The subreddit is r/LOTR LCG, and I reached out to him when he posts, and again, I was like, hey, you know, you do good stuff, and I said that I would mention him, and I said, hey, you should come on our show, and he's like, great, we're always up for a talk. So preliminarily, I don't even know his first name, so and he probably says it in his show, I just can't remember it now. But anyways.
We've also got the Warden of Arnor that does a progression series.
Oh yeah, he's been doing progression series forever though, right? I forgot about him. Yeah.
He started a little while ago, and then he seemed to drop off just before the Dream Chaser cycle, and he's picked it back up, and his last video was, let's find it, Siege of Gondor, that was released a week ago.
Right. So that's good. I mean, he's catching back up here, right?
Yeah. But the way he's done it is he's took them as they were released. So where so when the Saga boxes came in, is basically he's used cards up to that point of the Saga box for each one. So instead of just having a progression series going from doing all the main quests and leaving out the Saga boxes, he's done it all. And he's doing that with
he's done it all. He's done it all.
And I believe he's doing the same with the Nightmare versions as well. And it's called The Line Unbroken, is his progression series.
Okay. And that's the Warden of Arnor. Is that his YouTube channel, Warden of Arnor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it is. And he's a lad from the UK, so big shout out.
You have a special place in your UK heart for him.
He's also got a blog, which is also Warden of Arnor.
Okay. Yeah, I know that he's got a blog. That's good.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I didn't get around to reading it this month, so hopefully next.
Well, we'll catch up with him next month, right?
Yeah, hopefully.
Well, let's spend a little bit of time just finishing up talking about the written stuff, the blogs that are out there, and I think that probably, in my opinion, one of the best blogs out there for the game is Vision of the Palantir. Now, I've written a couple of articles for Vision of the Palantir. So that may be skewing my opinion, but
being slightly biased there, David.
But Dan Prinz, who is also known as Durin's father, out there. I mean, he's just voracious about putting out new written content for the game. And so, what did he put out this past month? What kind of things are out there?
There's a few articles on allies. There's the article that caught my eye was the article on the Battle of Khorne Dûm.
Right, and that wasn't written by him, though. He has guest writers. Who wrote that?
Yeah, Warden Dal 88. I am sorry if I butchered that.
Right, I think he's another European, Morton Dahl. He's in the Facebook group. He's active there. Yeah, and
also the Vision of the Palantir is celebrating their first year.
Hey, that's like us. This is kind of our first year anniversary too.
And within this article, it is obviously the Battle of Khorne Dûm is one of the hardest quests in Lord of the Rings. Its difficulty rating is 9.7, but he goes, Warden goes on and breaks it down into a well formatted, easy to digest blog, and he's also at the end of the article he's put in the number of locations, the number of treacheries, the number of enemies that are in this encounter quest, both easy and normal mode, which makes it easier to tech against the quest if you're into teching against certain quests.
Yeah, knowing those stats, like how often is the encounter tech going to surge, and is it a location heavy or thing that always helps when you're playing the game.
He's also listed a few tips and tricks to beat the quest, and also linked other people's playthroughs from YouTube into the document. So the likes of C-Stand's decks that have beat the quest or made a good attempt at the quest.
That Vision of the Palantir, he has so much information about each, and he breaks it down by quest. And so if you're looking for kind of the definitive guide for a quest, check Vision of the Palantir first, because it's got so much information. He hasn't gotten through all the quests, but he's gotten through a lot of them, and he's only one man, but people guest write for him, and like you said, Morton Dahl wrote this one, and I've written a couple on the Hobbit saga boxes and stuff. So, and then one other blog, right?
Yeah,
the big one that we're always talking about, right?
Yeah, we've got the White Tower blog, written by Samuel Shreve. He focuses on experimental deck building, and in the latest issue is an experimental deck building which focuses on a pair of decks, one being a Grima Doom deck, and the other one...
Everybody with Grima here.
Yeah, and the article that he's focusing on is the Fell People, which focuses on a deck that could handle and reduce threat and what have you. And it goes into deep focus on why he's choosing certain heroes or certain allies to put in this deck. Right. And they're generally always thematic. So,
and he's got a lot of like that's his thing, like all these experimental deck building things. And so Samuel, and we had him on the show talking about tactics Theoden, right? And so I mean he loves to mess around with decks and try to get decks working. Even if he thinks they can't work, he still tries to get them to work in a lot of ways.
And he generally succeeds in making them work one way or another. Mm-hmm. Whether they're going to win every time or not, he's always got a decent bit of content there. And then his second little blog, Agents of the White Council.
That's like a sub part. It's like a part underneath that, right?
Yeah, this is like it's all part of the White Tower, but this is more of a storyline escapade through all the quests.
Right.
And he's just released the write-up of Conflict at the Tower, which is a breakdown of his gameplay with a narrative aspect. And basically, what he's done is taken three heroes, which is Lanwin, Eleanor, and Thalen, or Thalin, however you want to pronounce it, through all the...
Some true lore geek is going to come and get us on pronunciation.
I'm game.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Everybody knows what card we're talking about.
And he goes through he's stated that he's going to go through all the quests and build up this giant narrative for the game.
Right, so he plays the game, and then he'll write up a story that kind of mimics what happened in the game.
Yeah.
And it's great. I mean, I've watched the first couple, and I mean, it's wild. It's wild to see him do those things.
I've watched them all up to date. He's fallen behind with the write-up due to work and family and some other bits and pieces that have been going on. And it was great to see him put out another article so that he can start getting back on track.
Right.
And this sort of idea of doing this written write-up to go alongside the playthrough, he's doing that slightly thematic as well. So in Conflict at the character, he had Bjorn there, as well as a few Dunedans that were helping Aragorn look for Gollum in the hunt for Gollum. And he's trying to tie in, I mean, it may be loosely tying in, saying Aragorn had the Dunedain there while looking for Gollum, but it works in the narrative. He's not planning on doing the saga boxes like this because they've got a story of their own.
Right.
But doing all the other, like the course, all the deluxe expansions, the APs, I'm actually looking forward to how this story might end or continue to grow, as I should say.
Right. I mean, he does just really good work. And this is, I mean, as we wrap up the show, I mean, this is the reason why I wanted to do this, and this is why I brought Grant along for this ride, is because there's just so much good content out there, you know, and if there's a show out there that kind of summarizes or gives you a taste of what it is, maybe a thematic write-up campaign isn't your thing, but it could be a lot of people's thing, and you may want to check out what Samuel's doing, you know, and there's just so much stuff. It's hard to know. So this is kind of like the tour around the community, you know.
Yeah, and I'd just like to say, obviously, as I said at the beginning, we haven't been able to get around all the blogs, all the podcasts, all the YouTube channels dedicate a Lord of the Rings content.
No.
So,
I mean, we didn't even talk about. I mean, Joseph Forster, yeah, he runs the Facebook group, but he has his own blog. He does he does some deck teching and things like that, for his blog, and that's been around forever. And so we're not trying to leave anybody out. We're just giving everybody a flavor of what's out there.
Yeah, and it's what we find as we're looking for stuff to read. Obviously, the Vision of the Palantir is one of the biggest blogs going, other than the Hall of Beyond blog that's been around since day one.
And probably Tales from the Cards. That's kind of a classic that's been around since almost the start of the Ian Martin, who does that. Yeah,
and it's just that we don't have enough time to mention everybody.
Yeah, and we're not being malicious. We're just giving people a flavor.
Yeah, we see something that we like, and we're just bringing it to your attention. All right. So next month, we'll probably have something different.
Right. And if you have something for us to look at, or something you want us to mention, or something, feel free, drop a message on our Facebook page, send us an email, cardtalk2018@gmail.com. We'll be happy, we'll be happy to look at it. We'll be happy to mention it, whatever. It's just, we're doing this as a service to the community. So as we wrap up this show, let's just first of all thank our first two Patreons again, Joseph and Dominic. We're really happy that that's happened. If you are interested in supporting us with our hosting fees and our contests and chance to win some swag from these contests, feel free to visit us at cardtalk2018. At patreon.com/cardtalk2018.
Or look on our Facebook. There's a link to it there.
Or look on our Facebook page. And also, we have a contest. Any Patreon between the time it was started and February 25th, any new Patreon for any amount will be entered in a drawing to win, I guess I'll say, the latest AP, depending on the release. Mount Gundabad is due to be out on February 8th or 7th. That doesn't necessarily mean it will be, but it probably will be by the end of the month. So if Mount Gundabad hasn't been released, then it's Fire in the Night. So feel free to visit us, to join us, and we look forward to doing this again next month, and adding your thoughts to our content.
And we might even have a new name.
Oh yeah. If you have an idea for a name, drop us a line, cardtalk2018@gmail.com, or on Facebook, or make a comment in the YouTube video, or in the audio podcast version. It'll be a lot of fun. Okay, so Grant, anything else you want to mention before we wrap it up?
Well, I'd just like to thank everybody again in the community for producing such great content.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's great. Okay, everybody, have a great day. And if you're interested in finding this or any of our back episodes of Card Talk, feel free to search YouTube, where you can find our flagship video episodes with the username CardTalk2018. Or you can search the RSS feed, cardtalk2018.libsyn.org, for our extended audio versions of our podcast. Or you can find us on Facebook at CardTalk2018. And if you have any questions for Grant or myself, or for both of us, feel free to email us at cardtalk2018@gmail.com.